So I'm continuing with my exploration of HiFi. I'm having fun with it actually, but it's not as simple as it sounds. This is an amplifier that I bought. It's good fun on eBay because all the really posh or a lot of the really posh hi-fi stuff from when I was, in my 20s is now available on eBay at a fraction of its original price, of course. This amplifier is a Leak Delta 70, and when I was, I think I would have been 17, I think I worked during the summer and I managed to buy the Delta 30, which is the lower power, exactly the same, but just a different power output. And it's alongside the Torrens TD160 deck, which again I had. I didn't have the 160, I had a different model, but it was about the same. And I had an SME arm on mine, whereas this is just has the tone arm is the Torrens tone arm, which probably isn't as good. But what I've discovered, you see, I bought the other amplifier, the one that's actually switched on, which is below the Leak. I've tried the Leak. Let me see. This is the only music I dare play because it's something I recorded myself a few years ago. I've got it on the computer there. I don't like the copyright strikes and all that stuff. But the problem is that there's no guarantee that the old stuff is going to sound as good anymore. And in fact, this is what I'm finding. The Yamaha amplifier under the Leak I picked up for £30, and it's an absolute bargain. It's a very good amplifier, Yamaha Natural Sound. It does sound good, and I've been listening to it for a while. I replaced a Denon amplifier with it. I wasn't that keen on the Denon, not because it sounded terrible, but because it had one of those wretched remote controls, and it kept on switching itself off after 10 minutes. And I always wanted to listen to music after 11 minutes, and it was just become a battle. I don't like these remote controls at all. So I saw the Yamaha, and I thought, well, I'll take a chance. And the amplifier came up, and it's battered. It's the top of the amplifier is all bent and folded in, which is why it's got that tray on it now. But the important thing is that it sounds good. There is an air gap under the tray. I don't know whether you can see that the top is sort of stoved in. For some reason it would be difficult to straighten it, but I could try. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a good amp, and it was really cheap. Now the Leak doesn't, to my ears, doesn't sound as good when I tested it today, and that could be due to all sorts of reasons. It could be due to input matching, but it could also be due to the age of the amplifier. And it may well be that although it's working, it's not working at its full potential. It gets quite a good write-up. The Leak Delta amplifiers, they were considered quite good, but in their day. But it could well be that a Yamaha of that caliber is a superior piece of equipment. I just don't know. I don't have all I've got is my ears, and what sounds okay. The Leak really would need to be taken in and refurbished. As I understand it, old electronic equipment carries a bit of a risk, and sometimes it just needs to be, to have a few transistors changed and a few capacitors changed, and make sure that it's all actually working properly, by putting it on a scope and making sure that the inputs are doing what they say. And that little job there, because I'm not skilled in that matter myself, would cost certainly more than the amplifier. I paid £150 for the amplifier, and I was very pleased to get it. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. It's very nicely made, and it just looks the part, I think. But of course, I didn't buy an amplifier to look at it. We buy these things to listen to them. And this then is the problem with HiFi, because you can buy a load of kit online at low prices, but at the end of the day, it has to sound good. And the same is true of the deck also. The Torrance deck is not running to speed, it needs a new belt. And I don't know how to set up the arm properly and whether the cartridge is any good. Perhaps I think now I would have done better to get a new Technics deck or a Pioneer deck or something that is more functional, but has less of the classic vibe, which you pay for, of course. The Torrens is a classic piece of kit. It's nicely made. It looks nice, but I mean that was quite expensive. I spent no, I can't quite remember how much I spent, but I think it was around about £300, and really quite a lot for me. And I'm not, whether it sounds good or bad, but it just could be a question of setup. The loudspeakers are actually quite good. Those are those Kef speakers that I bought, floor standing speakers. I mean, they're good in that they give a good. You get plenty of volume, plenty of bass. They're fairly bright, but they're not, good speakers in the sense of hi-fi. They don't have that analytical effect, particularly because of the tweeters, I think. So, I'm revising my approach to hi-fi now. I think, well, maybe it's a good idea these days to look at some new equipment which could well outperform the old stuff. I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum. I've put in an offer for another pair of Kef speakers, but vintage. These are new, quite new speakers. They're only probably about, I don't know whether they will be 6 or 7 years old. But somebody was selling a pair of Kef Chorales, and they want £100 for them, so that's what I've offered. And Kef Chorales, they're infinite baffle speakers. I mean, they would have been pretty good back in the day. They had a good name, and that is a classic loudspeaker. So what I'll do with them, I don't know. If I do win the bid and I get them, I think I might be tempted to connect them together with these Kefs to see if I can't get a bit more mid-range, but they might not be the best speaker for that particular job. And I might have to have them on the floor, which isn't the best place for them. But anyway, I mean, it certainly gives me something to think about. And then the other problem, of course, is the source, which at the moment is just coming from the computer, and it's not really, hi-fi in any way. So that's another reason why I'm not getting the analytical effect of the sound, which is the nice thing when you get a nice sound stage. It always sounds great, I think. There's not much of it here. On some tracks I can get a bit, but it's just that the speakers are not built for it, and the system's not built for it. But so it is, and maybe somebody has some experience in these matters. I don't know much about it all, but I am. I've always been interested in having a good sound system, and I've just been the last 15 years or 20 years really without one. So the whole digital thing came in. I got myself a Sony um, coordinated Sony system over in Italy, which sounded pretty good, but it wasn't hi-fi. There was a time, wasn't there, when you had a good, pretty nice sounding system, but there was no pretense at high fidelity. Whereas this sort of equipment can produce a different level of presence, a different level of sound, but it takes a little bit of tweaking, and sometimes it takes a bit of coin, which is I've more or less run out of all that. I was going to put out on some recorded music that I have from years ago when I was in my, oh, how old would I have been? When I was around 50 perhaps. I went to a studio in Italy and made a demo with about six tracks I think I recorded with, mainly with session players. And that was my conceit at the time, because I decided I was going to do it, and I hired a studio and with an engineer who was really good. It was very interesting to work with these people. And then I was going to play with the guys that I was playing with in the band, but because they were working and busy and lacked expertise for what I was attempting to do, I realised that I was paying for studio time, and it was being misused. It was being wasted, and so I chose to pay uh, session players, and I played with a double bass player, because the guy at the studio knew somebody who knew somebody who has always been a professional musician. He was renowned as being a very good sort of jazz bass player, and he could do rock as well. So he came along and played bass. I got a session drummer who was just stellar. He's so precise, and a saxophone player at one point, a violinist, and a vocalist. Those are the people that came along to the recording sessions, and it was great fun, I have to say. And the sound in the end was quite good. Of course, now I can't find the recording with all the moves that have gone on. It seems to have got lost. But I think I might be able to recuperate it. It must be somewhere on some disc lying around. So I'm going to hunt for it. And when I find it, I'll put it on this channel. And then people can see what they think of it. It sounded okay, but I thought the songs were not very good. They're stuff that I wrote, and I'm no songwriter at all. It was just kind of light music, I would call it, more than anything else. But it was good fun to do it. So what I'm going to do on the channel, I got not a strike, but I had a video removed by YouTube because I'd said something that you can't say on YouTube, and I'm sure I've said other things that you can't say, and it's made me reflect. I like YouTube. I support YouTube and their policies. I think they do well. The particular problem is that I'd violated some. You're not allowed to speak against the WHO or something that the WHO deems to be proper. You can't go against it. So that leaves me in a bit of a quandary, of course, because I don't agree with anything that the WHO does say. But, at the same time, I'm not, I'm not. Is it? I'm not really promoting that, am I? I'm just saying what I think. I don't think that. I don't think that certain animals are real, for example, but I haven't got into trouble for that. But they did delete one video. I don't know quite what I said because I haven't got a copy of it any longer. It doesn't. I don't mind really. I think they're entitled to do it, and I've learned so much from YouTube. If I could get an account or something like that with YouTube so that they might be less inclined to bother. But I don't think it works like that. I think they are under some kind of ideological constraint. And so they have to fit in with, in terms of healthcare in particular, perhaps with what is generally agreed. It's odd because, of course, there's so much herbal medicine and everything on in YouTube and all sorts of remedies. The dental advice that I was sharing and that you can find there, I mean, it doesn't really agree with mainstream. But I suppose when the issue is this question of infectious diseases, probably, and many people disagree over this. My daughter was going to come to visit me tomorrow, but she's unable to come because she's fallen ill of some minor illness, I think. And my sister immediately says, she's got a bug. Well, I don't believe in bugs, but I don't know whether I'm allowed to say that I don't believe in bugs. I mean, I believe in the sort of bugs that you can see, but I don't believe in bugs making me ill in my own case. I think it's other things. So whether that would be allowed to, whether I'd be allowed to say that or not, I'm not quite sure. It's just my personal beliefs, it seems to me there's quite a lot of information online about this stuff. For a while, you had to go to Rumble and to alternative sites, but they never seem to take off properly, do they? Whereas YouTube is just the standard fare for everybody, so I'd prefer to stay on YouTube and just keep within the acceptable boundaries. But what are they exactly? It's hard to say sometimes, isn't it? But I expect speaking about stereo systems would be okay. So that's what I've done this evening. And sorry for rambling, and God bless everybody.